Hi, I'm Sunny.
And I'm Allie.
And you're listening to Booksmart.
Booksmart is a podcast for readers who go absolutely feral for women's stories. The book lovers with never-ending TBR stacks and a crippling fear of falling behind in their annual Goodreads challenge.
If you want deliciously bookish discourse that's as silly as it is academic, then welcome. This is the podcast for you. Go on, get comfortable, make yourself a tea.
Or a hot chocolate.
And let's turn the page together. Allie Daisy King, we're doing a podcast. What the heck?
This is absolutely crazy considering the first time we met was under bookish circumstances. I mean, you approached me when we were meeting up at Bill's. I was just sitting there listening to an audiobook and you immediately asked, first thing you ever asked me was, well, what are you reading?
Do you remember what it was? I have a theory.
What do you think it was?
Was it Daisy Jones and the Six?
No. We were talking about Daisy Jones and the Six that day. But no, it was actually Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrane.
Oh, of course. That was like my introduction to you, is that you were a big Cochrane girlie.
I love her stuff. You're a cocker. I haven't read her newest book though, shockingly. Oh my God, I shouldn't say that out loud. Sorry, Alison. I love you. Charm Offensive's my favorite, most meaningful book. I'm sorry.
So clearly we met and connected instantly. We're interstate besties. You're from Melbourne. I'm from Sydney. We met up in Sydney and began an amazing long distance friendship and then somehow conned our way into being colleagues.
Witchcraft, quite frankly.
That's witchcraft. That's women at work, women in STEM.
Oh yeah, we got the same Etsy witch who did the curse on Charlie Kirk.
The curse. That's a euphemism if I've ever heard one.
Yes, we got her to put a hex on our boss to make sure that Sunny and I could get paid to talk about books.
And talk about books we will in this podcast. I mean, we are professional fangirls. We care about things deeply and passionately, and we have a lot of opinions. We take this very seriously.
Well, what is your first fandom that you really remember being a part of? Just, to give a little bit of lore and a bit of context to you for the audience.
I don't remember life BF before fandom. I would say that maybe my most active was like many of the amazing women that I know was the One Direction fandom. I was on Stan Twitter. I was in the trenches. But I also was a Swiftie. I was just in it. Justin Bieber, I dabbled, but yeah. I think it was musicians, but books came to me much earlier than One Direction or anything else like that. Twilight, actually, hold on. Every single sign off on my email was like, I'm not running with the wolves. I'm dancing with the vampires. Mrs. Cullen in the house.
Oh, that's humiliating, but not as bad as my first email address being gleek69@gmail.com, because I tried to do gleek@gmail.com. It was taken and they suggested numbers and I was like, let's go with 69. I was 11.
So there was no particular reason for the 69.
It just suggested 6 different numbers and I was like, let's go with 69. It was a fun thing. I still use that email for spam to this day. But clearly Glee was my OG fandom because I was a pick-me theater kid. I was like, I'm not like other girls. I'm listening to Bernadette Peters.
And that, I feel like, explains so much about you in the kindest way possible.
Oh no, it is like the most chronically asexual thing about me, despite the fact I am asexual. It's also like, yeah, clearly because you're a Gleek, like that just tracks at the end of the day.
I also rocked I'm a Gleek hoodie.
As you should, from JJ's.
From JJ's, yeah, absolutely. Rest in peace. Well, they're still around, but just not
iconic.
They're not around as much as they should be, quite frankly. Yeah. Books have always been such a special part of my life and have been my entryway into building a career as a fangirl and as a writer. And they have had a similar effect for you, but you're sort of, well, at least when we first crossed paths, you were new into the reading scene and there was sort of an exchange of recommendations that I think really solidified our friendship. Maybe you can talk about that.
I was looking for great new romance books because I only started reading in 2022, I believe, was like my first real time discovering the world of reading since I was a child. I was a big reader as a child.
She was literate beforehand.
Yeah, I'm not Leah Michelle, I promise. But I think I got so engaged in TV shows during my teenage years. I watched everything under the sun when I was really young and I had nothing really left. So at the end of the day, I was like, well, I guess I should actually, the worst thing I've ever said was I was traveling in Japan by myself on a solo trip and I said to my family, I want a podcast that's like a storyline that goes on for 12 hours, like a TV show, but with no visuals. And they're like, yeah, no shit, you dumb bitch. That's an audiobook. And I was like, oh.
Welcome to literature.
Yeah. And so hence now I spend 100 hours a month on Audible at minimum. It is the true love of my life. And I asked Sunny for some recommendations for good authors. And there was one special lady that she could not stop talking about, which now I can't stop talking about. She infected me with her.
And now the whole world can't stop talking about her.
The whole world is infected by the plague of Miss
Emily
Beautiful
Henry.
Emily Henry. Love of our life.
Love of our lives. I think when we met, we were book 3 of her romance rebrand.
And it was 3 weeks out of Happy Place coming out because I finished, it was like just before Easter and I was away and I did one each day of the Easter break.
That's insane.
And then the following week, Happy Place came out. And I've got a special treat for us later, but I've got Sunny and my original texts from our thoughts about each Emily Henry book. I know, it's a surprise.
Oh my
I went through our texts.
I love that.
And I found the original things of what we said about people we met on vacation back in 2023, I think.
2023.
That is pretty
ancient
funny.
text. That's a real throwback.
I know, Library of Alexandria popped her pussy with that one.
She really did. I just feel like in being here and having the privilege of having a podcast where we talk about books, because that's what this is. We talk about books, we dissect books, we love books, we talk about culture, we talk about the impact of books on culture. We talk about, the impact of, women sort of driving this huge increase in book sales, the impact that that's having on culture.
This culture renaissance of women-led stories that I think have been really spiking since probably 2023 has been a really big spike, I think, since like the Summer of the Girl. We've kind of seen a couple of things every single year storytelling-wise that have just been so heavily driven by women's stories and narratives.
Because women's stories matter. They just matter.
You'll hear us saying that a disgustingly high amount in this
Shout
podcast.
out to Reese.
Reese, hello sunshine. We love you.
We love you. But I want to say, in having the privilege to talk about books as readers, as writers, as culture consumers, I want to do a shout out to someone that will never hear this, and that's to Jacqueline Wilson, because this is going to sound so dramatic. This actually sounds like dialogue from an Emily Henry novel. I feel like I don't exist without Jacqueline Wilson, which is crazy. She's a children's author with really crazy books of trauma and coming of age. There's sort of like middle-aged books, and I'm sure many of you have grown up with them. You'll recognize the classic Nick Sharratt illustrations, but that just opened my brain in ways it had never been before, and I just discovered a love that was just unconditional and forever. And so that, I wouldn't be here talking about Emily Henry and about culture and whatnot if it wasn't for Jacqueline Wilson, discovering her as a kid. Obviously, I'd read your Go-Go books, your Pearly in the Park and Tashi and Rainbow Magic. All the baddies read Rainbow Magic, but Jacqueline Wilson solidified the connective power of storytelling. And that's what we kind of want to do with this podcast is storytell, get to know each other through the characters that we read and discover with you guys.
And we also want this to sort of, in a way, function as a parasocial book club. So I feel like we need to give a bit of like an explanation of like how our podcast is going to work. For night A, we are going to be focusing on a book club pick of the month. We'll let the audience know in advance what the pick is going to be. And we would actually really love to hear from you guys about what your thoughts on it are. So we'd love you to send us voice memos, videos, texts, Insta DMs, slide into our DMs, just do anything with your thoughts on it as if we are actually having a book club together. And then the second week of it,
going to be beautiful bookish discussions, like we're having today. Sorry, we're actually starting on Fortnight B. Bookish discussions that range from bookish trends that we're noticing, what it's like to build a career as a reviewer, as a fangirl, as a literary agent. What is it like to be an author writing these best-selling stories? There's honestly kind of the limit does not exist on these discussions that we're going to have. And we want everyone to be a part of the conversation, and we can't wait to serve up what I think is a very timely and relevant conversation today. But today we have sat down with a very specific question in mind, and that is, what do book adaptations owe readers? I mean, we have kind of seen this resurgence of the book adaptation. It's not a new thing. Our favorite books go to screen in some iteration quite often, but I feel like with the success of things like Heated Rivalry, The Summer I Turned Pretty, every single time I look at Deadline or film updates, there's just another book that's been optioned.
And often by Prime.
Often by Prime. They're leading that. Netflix is kind of, trying to have a say in that too. But we are going to ask a couple of different questions. What matters most when you're watching a book adaptation, when you're making a book adaptation, making choices that are faithful to the source material or ones that are going to work better on screen? Should the goal of any adaptation be to appease existing fandoms or attract new ones? And book or film or book or TV show, are you reading first and then watching? I know a lot of readers have a lot of thoughts on that.
And so the perfect thing to tackle that today, to be kind of like
the case study.
Case study, if you will, yeah, we thought would be people we meet on vacation / you and me on vacation, different title depending on your region, because Emily Henry is often seen as like the deity of the romance genre. Everyone is obsessed with her writing, rightfully so. She's a fantastic author. We are both diehard fans of hers. But we would love to discuss the conversation surrounding this, honestly, quite controversial adaptation.
We are currently filming this a couple of days after the film's released. We also had the pleasure and privilege of seeing it early. This might be coming to your ears a little bit later, but at the moment, it's all anybody can talk about. I mean, we're all obsessed with Emily Bader. We all want to consume as much M-Hen or M-Hen adjacent content. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about the film, how it was received more broadly and how we received it. And let's keep it general for our listeners who maybe haven't seen it yet. Yeah. And we really want you to watch it so you can be a part of the discourse too. Allie, what did you think of the film?
Okay, I'm a big people we meet on vacation girl. Initially, when I read Emily Henry back in 2023, this was my favorite book for like a year. I have re-listened and read this 15 times, I want to say. It is
you
one
could
of
probably
my most
recite it
consuming.
back to front.
Genuinely, there are scenes I can. But I think on my first watch, which keep in mind, I did watch the day my grandmother passed away, so I was not in the right headspace, but I also, could have been really uplifted by something joyous and beautiful that day. I needed something to distract me. And I'd also been waiting for this screener and I was just, I was going to drop everything for it. I was disappointed in it. I'm going to be very frank. I am not certain about a lot of the writing choices, honestly. I think the script is a bit of a letdown, which sucks because Yulin is one of my favorite authors. And I love her work in everything else, but I think I have a lot of issues with people we meet on vacation, and especially Alex's character. But I also, on the second watch, I liked it more. I will say, I found it more enjoyable when I tried to not be as, I think maybe the second time around, I was going into it already knowing that my expectations were low. And so then I was pleasantly surprised by more things, like casual sex. I was in hysterics. I think my mum and I were like hitting each other, like kind of thing.
I really echo those sentiments. I mean, for those of you who haven't seen it, it is like, on paper, your standard friends to lovers rom-com. And, the book delivers on both the romance and the comedy and the friends to lovers. People we meet on vacation used to be on the sort of bottom half of my Emily Henry rankings. And
on most people's.
On most people's. It's kind of controversial within the M-Hen fandom.
I don't think it's controversial. I just think most people don't like it very much. So they view it as lesser, which I think is probably just because Alex is awkward and not brooding. I think that's a big part of it because he's one of the less dreamy love interests. And I think that
interesting. I don't know if that could possibly be. I don't know if I see that. But I think for whatever reason, it didn't connect with people as much as some of her other novels did straight out of the gate. I think also the fact that it was following up Beach Read, which was her first entry into the romance lexicon, and it was like almost universally beloved.
And possibly her most fleshed out characters were in Beach Read. I think that objectively speaking, those are probably her most thought out characters. Poppy is my favorite of hers in terms of relatability. It's actually like scary when you draw our lives in certain ways. It's like, oh.
You're like, does she know me?
No, it's literally, is this fucking play about us?
Is this play about us? She then followed that with Book Lovers, which is literally the most special book in the world to me. But at the time, it was sort of like, it's the sequel effect. Like people aren't really sure what to expect. Was this a once off, what she was able to achieve with Beach Read? And we've seen that certainly is not the case with Emily Henry. She delivers beautiful, resonant, romantic novels time and time again. They're not all 5 stars, but they're pretty close. And so I had the privilege of reading them as they came out. And so the goodwill for Emily Henry was nowhere near as solid as it is now. And so I think when I first read it, I enjoyed it, but I did not hunger to reread it. I was like, oh, that's fine. There's a couple of storylines, if you know, that I felt were a little silly. I also just couldn't relate to it. I couldn't relate to the like pining over a decade. I'm too impatient for that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to say straight up, hey, y'all, we've been doing this dance for like 5+ years now. I wouldn't even let it get to 5. I probably wouldn't even let it get to 2 years. I'd be like, do you love me or not?
Baby, it'd be 5 days for you.
It'd be 5 days. I'm a Cancerian. I feel things. I love love and I love communication. So I wouldn't, that couldn't be me. But in rereading it recently, before this adaptation came out, and 3 or 4 years older than when I first read it, I fell in love with it because the characters are so well defined, but also their relationship to one another, you know, this push and pull between them and why they make sense, even though they're such opposites, is so clear, and it's so like evocative and addictive, I should say. And I'm not even just saying that to use big words, but like
you buy into their love story.
You buy into it. I love the relationship they have with one another.
And also the way in which it progresses over the years is fantastic. And I highly implore every single person to actually in their minds, because we only get Poppy's POV, it's like it's not a dual POV, which is very common in love stories nowadays. I actually one day just decided, what was Alex thinking in every single part of this? And so I have like mapped out such an intense interior world for him because I was so fascinated with his perspective of being in a like 10, 12 year long like weird situationship. Not even situationship, friends to lovers slow burn, but not even slow burn because it's just kindling for ages. It's just, it was a mess. And I love thinking about his journey through that. And I think that's such a, like, I highly implore you guys to do that yourselves. It is so fun to get to create
mental
that world
exercise,
for him.
homework. But at the same time, and while I think that's a value, I like Alex feels so real to me, even through Poppy's perspective, you know, because of the lens that Poppy sees him in, but also because of the dialogue that Emily writes for Alex. And so my biggest problem, one of my biggest problems, and it's a shared problem that we both had with the film adaptation, is that that was squashed. I felt like the Alex in the film doesn't resemble the Alex in the book, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I think my problem with it is that, you know, I want to say I was able to look at it as a standalone piece of media and not as a faithful adaptation, but I am not that disciplined. I think as an adaptation, I don't think it is a particularly good one because it changes so many of the fundamentally important things of the narrative in the book, and I don't think for the better. And then I think as a general film, for somebody that hasn't read the book, I think it's an entertaining enough film. Like, it's fun, it's entertaining, it's beautiful to look at. But
mise en scène knocked it out of the park. And it's so beautiful to see colour in a film again.
Yes, bring back colour.
The lighting was enjoyable in a way where, like, some of the scenes were definitely, you know, this classic Netflix lighting, but some of them were really not. The beautiful ones in New Orleans, like, speak to me. Speak to me. Oh my God.
Okay, Poppy.
That was a beautiful section of the film. I think that was objectively the best part of the film.
Oh, definitely. But I feel like, and maybe I won't ever be able to separate it, but if I think about it as a romance film that I just stumbled on, it's a solid, like, yeah, that was a fun way to spend a night. Like, that was a charming 3-star film. If I think about it as an adaptation, my rating goes lower just because of where I feel disappointed as a reader. And so I think that's my problem, because it's like, if it's not going to be faithful, then at least let it be a fun other movie. And I think it kind of just gets lost in Netflix's expansive catalog.
Well, should we get into the casting?
The core of any adaptation.
Yes, because I feel like that's a really good place to start, because I went through and found who I initially proposed to be cast in this when Sunny and I spoke about this in 2023. I said initially that Zoe Deutsch and Hayley Lou Richardson were like the two kind of girlies I thought about for Poppy, because they were kind of known for playing like the quirky girl characters. And I was like, you know what, they could have that like quirky charm to them. Emily Bader was the perfect choice. We are both diehard Lady Jane fans, justice for that show. And she honestly was possessed by the spirit of Meg Ryan in certain scenes, in that sort of charming, girl next door, relatable, funny, warm charisma that is so rare to find nowadays. And I like the fact that she has a face that shows expression.
No one wants to emote these days.
Oh, All's fair is proof of that. And then I said, for Alex, Will Poulter. I think that my biggest gripe with Tom Blythe being cast is, why was she so slow to hit that? He's
I was not expecting you to say that. I was really not expecting you to say that. Wow.
It's Tom Blythe. He's so beautiful.
Yeah,
We've all
he's
seen
stunning.
that clip of him on, was it, oh God, which late night show was it, when he touches like something in a hole for like a second,
stop.
and he literally within a second is like, oh, it's a vibrator. Horrible British accent. I apologize. But he is objectively beautiful. I'm saying that. And I think he's stunning. He has charisma. He has swagger.
Mm.
He doesn't pull off a nerd very well, in my humble opinion. He doesn't pull off socially awkward that well.
I love Tom Blythe. I think he's gorgeous. His accent is a whole thing. I actually thought I would never have fan casted him. Mostly because he kind of wasn't on my radar, but I just never would have picked him. I thought visually we could really make that work. Even though he's conventionally attractive, you know what I mean? Like, he's tall, he's got nice features, but they're also sort of like nondescript. Like, it's kind of, and I'm going to try not to go down this hole, but it reminds me of an article on Armie Hammer that went popular quite a few years prior to his cannibalism and abuse scandal, which not enough people are still talking about, where they said that Armie Hammer would be the perfect criminal because his features, like, all you'd be is like, oh, he's got blonde hair and blue eyes. But they're not unique enough to stand out in a crowd. Nondescript.
White man blindness.
And Tom Blythe has that. But I feel like in person, the charm and the quirk that he gives, you know, gives him a little bit of riz. I do feel like because he does have the conventionally attractive good looks plus the riz, they tried to offset that by making Alex in the film quite cold.
He is such a dick in the first scene. And I know they're trying to go for like the When Harry Met Sally, you know, homage with the car ride with, you know, trying to make them seem like they're coming at life from very different perspectives, and then somehow like they meet in the middle. But quite frankly, he comes across so poorly. He seems like an unfeeling dickhead immediately in it, and he's angry at her for being late, but not even like all. I feel like in the book, it's like very much that he's like anxious. It all stems from anxiety, any of his rudeness, whereas he just seems mean in the first scene, in my opinion. And also, they got rid of the most interesting part of like the what's it called? What is it called when you drive a car?
Couple?
No, like a road trip. They got rid of the most interesting part of the road trip for me is when they're talking about karaoke and he reveals that A Case of You by Joni Mitchell is his karaoke song, because that is a moment that I would buy into why Poppy is like fascinated with this guy. She actually says a guy from Linfield, like karaoke song is A Case of You. She is so confused and confounded by this man. That is a really great character moment because it shows us, the audience, why Poppy would invest time in him. I have no idea why she was even remotely interested in spending any time with him.
But also why he was interested in her, given that they had zero common ground. And in hamming up his meanness, they also made Poppy more obnoxious. And it was already a fine line. She was already naturally obnoxious, but she was endearing. Whereas like she clearly was violating a couple of boundaries of personal space and just like politeness in the film in their first meeting. So I would just say with the casting, obviously we have mixed feelings. Emily Bader, I think, can do no wrong. I think she's stunning and I can't wait to see more of her. She's genuinely such a great actress. Yeah. I think Tom Blythe, I'm going to defend him. I think he's a great actor and could have been a fantastic Alex. I was so excited. I think my problem stems from the way their characters were written and directed.
Yes. It's not like he's playing it angry. Alex was just written to be more of a dick.
So we've touched on some of the changes. We could speak about them all day because there are so many changes with adaptation, and I feel like it's important to share them, you know, on the podcast to sort of preface our thoughts and feelings because, you know, no one would expect a screenwriter or director to be completely beholden to the very varied and changing whims of existing fandom. But it kind of feels like if you sort of marked every choice in the book and you were like point A or point B every time a decision had to be made, point A being like as it is in the book, or point B, something else completely new. They did point B so many times. And surely you've got to balance it out a little bit, or at least make sure that decision B makes better sense and is more rewarding than what we're straying from.
And I think that Heated Rivalry is such a perfect example of being faithful to the books and the book audience so that it's there and loyal, but also adding stuff to give the story more gravitas and emotional depth. That is the perfect example of it, because a lot of the scenes are perfectly lifted from the book, but it is the emotional performances, the mise en scène, the filming of it. It is all of these details combined that make it jump off the page and that make it so special. That is why Heated Rivalry is, not why, one of the many reasons why Heated Rivalry is having such a moment. And I think that with this adaptation, they actually got rid of some of the most important moments to show their connection. Even some of the most important lines, with Alex saying to Poppy, it's like I didn't exist before you. It's like you made me. There were so many important moments and scenes that were taken out. The fact that Alex says, there's the word boring is said 18 separate times in People We Meet on Vacation. We checked it. It is so often him being like, oh, Sarah broke up with me because she thinks I'm as boring as the library we first met in, and all these other moments where he says consistently throughout the thing, you wouldn't swipe on me because I'm boring. He is so insecure about that. That is his deep-rooted fear, is that he is actually just this boring loser at the end of the day. He thinks that Poppy will never go out with him because he's boring and she's interesting. That is his hold-up for not pursuing her. And she never viewed him as boring, except for like the first couple minutes of the car ride.
And I feel like that's the charm of their relationship as it's depicted in the book, right? Is that they both feel really chosen by one another in a way that they haven't felt in their relationships, platonic or romantic.
And cherished.
With other people. And cherished, you know what I mean? Like, she is chosen, Alex chooses Poppy as, you're not too much. You can be as you are with me and I'm going to accept you. You know what I mean? She's like, I choose you as my little weirdo, right? Whereas I feel like with Alex, Poppy chooses him as like, no, I think you're so interesting. I'm so fascinated by you. I don't want you to be this crazy out there person. I can bring that out in you because you hold that so safely with me. But like, I'm investing the time in you and I just am so fascinated and intrigued by who you are. You know what I mean? She's curious about him in a way that other people aren't.
Yes.
Whereas I think Alex is endeared to Poppy in a way that she feels few other people are. And so they kind of offer each other this just like deep tenderness and understanding. And I don't think we see that in the film.
The only scene we really see that is New Orleans.
Yeah.
That is a perfect representation of their relationship.
But I feel like that out of context with a lot of the other, that in the absence of a lot of the other moments leading up to that point that are depicted in the book, made that scene, as fun and sexy and cool as it was, feel incredibly heightened and forced and out there. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, definitely.
This guy with a stick up his ass, I don't think I can say
Yes, you can. Say it. Say it with
this
your
guy
chest.
with a stick up his ass, like, he is not suddenly bumping out the worm and a fully choreographed routine. Like, it's going to take more than that. Or like, how does she already have this monologue? Anyway, we're getting lost. We're getting lost in it because they're passionate.
But also Gladys and Keith, you can really see why in Funny Story, Miles and Daphne hated them. You can see why. It's like kind of, when you read it, it's like, oh, that's funny and cute. When you see it, you're like, oh, they're insufferable.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, to strangers like Miles and Daphne, who are kind of like nihilistic icons, yeah, they would absolutely hate them. And I appreciate them for that. Side note.
I think the crux of where we sort of go wrong, right, in some of the changes here is, one, how they first meet. I think by not having them meet at orientation, the sort of two people in the same situation, awkward, out of place, both humbled by the sort of awkwardness of being first year students, and having them set up, in the car, and then, as we've said, sort of playing it the way that they did. I thought that sort of made them start off slightly offbeat. But I think the main problem is that in how they reunite, obviously, if you've read the book, she reaches out to him. She says, it's been a couple of years, I miss you. And that's the thing, sorry, to clarify, in the book, they sort of mutually ghost each other after awkward moments happen between each other. And so it means that when they reconnect, there's no animosity. There's just this like strangeness at being out of sync for the first time, but then also a relief in finally orbiting each other.
It's a beautiful way of putting it.
Thank you. And so I feel like by having in the film, we see they obviously have a huge argument that doesn't exist in the book. And then
Wait, what do you mean?
Well,
that does exist.
To this extent.
Not to that extent. It also felt unearned.
For example, and I'm going to read you some lines here. You know, we have, and this is really getting to the nitty gritty, so I apologize to people that haven't seen or read.
But also, why are you listening to this? Love you for it.
Please stay. Please stay.
But I'm like, wow, you're really that interested.
They merged their first kiss with the pregnancy scare in the film, which I think was a really bad choice.
It made me, and then also him proposing right afterwards, because he never proposes.
But also, when they had the kiss, she immediately pulls back. Versus we know in the book, she kind of pulls forward, but he pulls back because he's like, no, like we shouldn't have it like this. Like there's not an instant regret. There's a moment of possibility that exists between them.
Yeah, but I think it cheapens his affections and also lessens his emotional intelligence. I know.
Well, because it feels like transactional. Like it feels like he's like, well, it feels transactional in the sense that like she has a pregnancy scare. Oh, I'm so glad I'm not pregnant. Thank you for being there for me. I'm going to kiss you because I'm just dealing with emotional baggage right now. Well, I'm not dealing with it, so I want a distraction, right? And then simultaneously, you know, he's unhappy with that, so he proposes to Sarah, which doesn't happen in the book, as a distraction because he can't deal with their baggage. So it's like they're both being impulsive and reckless with each other rather than it just being the two of them in their own little bubble.
And I love the first kiss in like the 2 summers before part in the book. I love that it's actually a really sweet and tender moment. They are just drunk.
And they're both single at the time.
They're drunk, they're single. They have been yearning for this time together. They've been wanting to spend this time together, and they just kiss each other and like start hooking up. And then they both kind of freak out because he's, you know, very much, he wants it to be like forever. He wants to like lock it down if it's going to happen once or just not do it at all. And the fact that it even got that far and neither of them communicated their feelings, because they are horrible at communicating their
but like
open
at
emotions.
that point in the book, their hesitation with one another isn't about anybody else. It isn't about another partner.
Which
and I feel like
feels icky.
Yeah, it feels icky. And I think this is summed up by a piece of dialogue that I wrote down immediately when I watched the film, which is when in the film, Poppy and Alex having a conversation for the first time after he proposes to Sarah. And she's like, is this what you want? He says, what I want is a stable, loving relationship, and sometimes that takes sacrifice. It's called compromise. And she says, Alex, I think it's called settling. And then he says, I think this is our last trip together.
And then she agrees, which I also hate that there's a final note in that. It's so much more interesting to have the mutual ghosting because that feels much more realistic and honest, which is something that
and easier to come back from as well.
Yeah, and also I think Emily's stuff like really feels emotionally resonant and rooted in reality, which is why I think she's viewed as being like greater than most romance authors, and there are hundreds and thousands of them out there, and she is viewed as like the holy grail for a reason. I think that's because she has such rich emotional stories. And it feels real that they would kind of just kiss each other and then kind of ghost each other except for on birthdays. That is an honest and very real thing. But to then shift it by then having them have this like final conversation where they say it's so much more cinematic. I get it. This is a film. I understand the medium. But it is just not necessary.
But I think it also makes me respect Alex less, and
makes me like him less.
Dulls his appeal because he now just becomes reminiscent of like any man approaching his 30s who's like, oh shit, like I don't know if I love this woman, but it's time to get married. I guess this is the next step. So I don't know if this is not the love of my life, but this is the person I love while I'm the most ready to be married.
Poor Sarah and her bad wigs.
And her horrible wigs.
Oh my God, with all the comically large headbands. Fantastic.
Is it Sarah
Catherine Hook? Yeah.
Hook?
Sarah. Oh my God.
But it made you go like, well, hang on. If you're willing to go off and marry and be with somebody else, then why do I want to be with you? Our love isn't great enough. And it also makes him an F-boy who, you know, Sarah becomes collateral damage even more than she already is in the book. And it's just such a like selfish decision. And you're like, well, if you're capable of like exacting that sort of petulance and malice towards Sarah and also towards Poppy, then why would I want to be in a relationship with you?
I feel like my last big gripe with this, and this is something I haven't, like me and Sunny we have been biting our tongues talking about this. I think that a lot of the issues that I have with this film could have been solved if they included a couple more montages. There are like no montages in this, and that is like a staple of the genre. It is such an important way of showing the passage of time, the changing of relationships. I think, yet again, Heated Rivalry does it so well because at the start of episodes 2 and 4, sorry, Sunny hasn't watched it, but like you're about to get spoiled. 2 years pass in each of those montages each time. And you can really see so much character exploration, and the difference in their relationship over time is so perfectly shown and explored through that. And I think they could have montaged some of the summers and shown the times, like shown the ways in which Poppy and Alex get closer. They could have shown more moments of him being like weird Alex, naked Alex, as she refers to him as, shown the hints of, you know, I think it was like that third summary, and when she says there's like that 5 to 15% of her that wonders what if, and then the moment where she says, oh, that's the first time I wanted to kiss him, and then when like having those sort of thoughts, and then also when she's like, when they're taking that photo in Colorado, I believe, and she says she thinks, oh my God, I love you, and she's really scared by that. She thought it for the first time, I'm in love with you. I think that these moments that are so integral to their story could have been shown through montages. So it's missing it.
I think, and you've just made this click for me, is that it means that like, because we don't see the journey of them falling in love with each other as people, let alone as possible romantic prospects, right? It means that, you know, and a lot of films do this, but when they kind of only discover what they feel for each other in each other's absence and when their personal lives aren't working out, it just feels like it's convenience rather than, you know, this undeniable chemistry and love of each other as people. And that's the tenderness of how much they love each other as people and as friends is what anchors the entire book. And so when we don't get to see them fall in love with each other as people and then as best friends, as platonic soulmates, and then as possibly more, it dilutes that experience for us. And it also meant that for me, I hated, and I know it's meant to be romantic and sexy, I hated in the movie when she goes, and I'm sorry kids, I'm going to swear, I don't want to be your fucking friend, Poppy.
Like, because since when?
Like, since when? You guys have been best friends and you've loved being friends. You know what I mean? And the reason that they will end up working so well as romantic partners is because they are such deep, beautiful friends.
Like, that's not something Book Alex would ever say. He'd be like,
it's giving incel. It's giving OS friend zone.
What did he say where it's like, I would rather have like a piece of you than have none of you? I think he says that at some point. And I also could be conflating another example. I believe there's some section where he says that in the book from
the sentiment is definitely
reads.
Expressed in some way.
And now I think that it's time, because we've been shitting on this a bit, and keep in mind, we enjoyed this film. We feel a lot. We're very passionate. We love things a lot. Why don't we move on to talking about some of the things we actually did enjoy from it?
But I have one more. please.
Okay, Sunny.
Okay,
this is your final thought, please.
Final thoughts. Them reconnecting not through a trip and Poppy humbling herself to reach out and say, let's do it again, I think was a really bad choice. It just meant that it didn't make sense when they made time for each other. But on top of that, when August needle drops, you're like, what? Y'all hardly like each other as friends, let alone realizing, you know, lamenting on loss and potential and what could be. And it was like, that could have been a really good song for them, but instead we wanted to have a Taylor Swift moment and it just was played at the wrong part.
I also think it was the wrong song. If they were going to pick any Taylor Swift song for it, it should have been The Bolter, because she is the Bolter. That is the story of her life. It is actually like, I want an edit. Someone send me an edit.
But like at that point also he's single. Like at least play it when he announces he's proposed to. Anyway, I digress. One of the things that I loved about the film, a consequence of just how charming Emily Beta is, I'm a big sucker for, of course, the like, you know, the final the big gesture and the chasing after each other. And I thought her having a thrill of how much she hates running, and this is very
great Chekhov's gun,
Mindy Project-esque and Meg Ryan-esque, her then chasing after him and the light stopping and you're like, no, is she gonna make it, is she not? And she's huffing and puffing but still looking amazing. I loved that. I thought that was so fun.
It was so charming, and I loved, like, I know we in this culture we are very over-reliant on references. I liked the When Harry Met Sally references in this, from like the inclusion of the diner through the journey in the car at the start as being like their meeting point, and then the running scene at the end. Those were all very charming choices, and
they were absolutely pouring from the Meg Ryan well.
Yes, as they should.
And Yulin Kwang, who did the screenplay, she spoke about that of like, you know, we want to take from the well, but we don't want to leave it dry. And so I do think we are soon going to reach, we're going to reach a max. We're going to max out of Meg Ryan recreations. We've got to be adding to the canon, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what this film does.
What was the last thing that was added to the canon? Say it on the count to 3 with me. 1, 2, 3.
To all the boys on the ball. Thank God, I was so scared.
I
and Set
knew
It
you were
Up,
gonna
I
say
think,
that.
was really fun as well. So
But
in that
Set It Up
sense,
is a different genre. Set It Up is like a comedy with romantic elements. In my eyes, it isn't a rom-com in the traditional sense.
But as far as Hollywood's concerned, it's
Yes.
a rom-com. And so I think that's why, like, the way that those felt unique but referential, I don't know that I can say that this adaptation, even as a standalone film, not as an adaptation, I don't know that I can credit it with like a rom-com renaissance in film in the way that her books have triggered a rom-com renaissance for literature.
I also don't think that there's a scene in this that could be referenced.
No.
There,
And if it is, it's a reference to something else.
exactly. So there's not going to be that iconic moment, whereas every other film, even ones that do reference, like To All the Boys, they have like heavy 16 Candles inspiration. Even that film has very, very strong moments that you can reference on your own. And that will become a reference in generations to come. It is one of the most perfect adaptations. My favorite line of the whole thing: we don't have mailboxes, we have wanderlust. Lucian, come get your diva crown. That was the most perfect line. I wanted to vomit, and I also wanted to like pee my pants laughing. It is the most perfect thing to describe Trey, and he was so perfect in this. I loved every second he was on screen. He sucked.
Fierce is fierce, honey.
Oh, one thing. Poppy's love of travel being a trauma response, perfectly handled. Because she never felt comfortable and safe in her environment growing up outside of her family unit, but she really wanted to be cool and escape to this cool life that kind of felt like she was a little bit giving the middle finger at the people who bullied her growing up. She wanted to have this success, which is why I like in the books when she confronts a high school bully and they don't really realize the damage they've done. I like that she's having this career crisis because she is sick and tired of running from her problems. She's ready to settle down and face her trauma and face all of these weird choices in her life, and she's ready to actually settle down and not be chaotic. I really enjoyed that as a through line. I think that her personal discovery and story with that was so fleshed out.
What she wants is home, even if that's a person, and it was. I just hate that in that home they built, there was no Flannery O'Connor.
I know. Oh my God. But also her outfits, at least. Thank God she had good clothes and was interesting. Wearing fun pieces. Was that such a key part of her?
Absolutely.
Something that I relate to.
What is the through line here? Because we want to see more book adaptations. We don't want to crucify anybody that's brave enough to try. There's great potential. And we know that pretty much all of Emily Henry's books are being optioned for a screen.
Yeah.
What do they owe us? Where do they go right? Where do they go wrong? What do we want? What's the through line here?
I want people to not be as scared about sticking to the source material. You're not being lazy if you stick to the source material. It exists for a reason. My most commonly said expression is don't fuck with perfection. And I've
never heard you say that.
Baby, every time I say that I hate tea, I say it's worse off water, don't fuck with perfection.
That could be true.
Yeah, you just don't listen to me.
Because I'm too distracted by you.
Oh my God.
I agree. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think particularly with authors like Emily Henry that do dialogue so well.
So interesting.
I want to see you take more of that. But I would just say that I understand that you've got to change things for different mediums. I don't want choices that are different to be made, just for the sake of it. I want them to have payoff. I want them to course correct things and make things stronger. And I just don't feel like that happened here. I feel like it was at the expense of the source material. So I'm open to different. I'm open to better. I just don't want worse.
And what we got was worse. Which sucks. And I think that it's a weird place to start off for the M. Hen cinematic universe because I'm guessing either Beach Read or Funny Place are going to be the next ones we get. And it is kind of worrying me a little bit how these are going to work out and how these are going to present, because Beach Read, getting into personal rankings, that's my favorite of them. And I think that is such a special story and I'm terrified now.
It's also scary because this film was translated to screen by Yulin Quang, who is now going to do the direction and screenplay of Beach Read. And we really trusted her perspective and her care because she's been in the industry for a long time. And she also has written a book.
which happens to be our book club pick of the month.
We really want you to read this book with us. How to End a Love Story by Yulin Quang. It is a drama. It's dark. It has romance. It has sex, but it is really deep and gritty. It is written by Yulin Quang, adapted for screen. People We Meet on Vacation. We are going to see a lot more of her, as we should. So it's time we get familiar with her work. It's also about adapting books for screen. So it's a real meta experience.
So I hope you follow us along for the next episode where we are going to be delving into this fabulous book. That really just gave away my opinion, didn't it? And then for a bonus thing on socials, you will be able to see me and Sunny reading off our original reviews for People We Meet on Vacation as a little teaser, as a little
extra. So join us next time, How to End a Love Story. Thank you for listening to our first ever episode. Forgive us for errors and whatnot. We're getting new at this, but we can't wait to get better and better with y'all listening.
We hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, divas.
Bye.
Bye.